Good morning. Today we're going to be looking at the impact of oppression. We already looked at the theme that has been developed in this novel, which is the oppression of the weak. And now in chapter 4, we really see the impact that has on some of the characters in our book. But before we do that, we're going to start by defining the term psychological protection. This is a psychological term that refers to the way in which children learn to respond to traumatic events in order to protect themselves from psychological pain. So, for example, if a child learns when he or she is young that if that child is nice to people, people will take advantage, then as an adult, that child is probably going to be mean to people in order to protect him or herself from being taken advantage of. So, a psychological protection is really just a learned behavior in order to prevent yourself from having any kind of psychological pain in the future. Healthy adults tend to outgrow psychological protections, but sometimes when a psychological protection comes from real serious trauma, they stick around. So, referring to our book, when you talk about the oppression of the weak that's presented, that oppression can cause long-term trauma, and we do see that it actually does cause long-term trauma in some of the characters in our book. So the two ways that it plays out is that some of the characters are very cruel to others, and some of the characters have a mask or an armored version of themselves that they actually present to the world. So first we're going to look at Crooks. Crooks is our first character who experiences real oppression in this novel, and it plays out with a psychological protection. So we'll start with cruelty to others. Crooks displays cruelty to others when he's speaking to Lenny, and he kind of really enjoys torturing Lenny and giving him fear that George may not return. And we see the description. Crooks's face lighted with pleasure in his torture. He really, really enjoyed that Lenny started to get afraid. And he only sort of took a step back when Lenny became dangerous and started getting really upset with him. Then we see how Crooks masks himself. He gives us this armored version of himself. First, when he acts as though he doesn't want Lenny or Candy's company in his room, but secretly he really does want them in his room and he's really enjoying it. And we see that with the statement, "Come on in. If everyone's coming in, you might just as well." It was difficult for Crooks to conceal his pleasure with anger. Then the second time we see this masked version of himself is when he immediately gives up on his dream to join Lenny, Candy, and George on their dream ranch at the end of the chapter. "Remember what I said about hoeing and doing odd jobs? Well, just forget it," said Crooks. "I didn't mean it, just fooling. I wouldn't want to go no place like that." So we really see that society has beaten down on Crooks so much that he wouldn't even consider having a dream for society to take away from him again. So these are protections. He's preventing himself from being hurt again. Then we have Curly's wife. Curly's wife displays cruelty to others. From the moment she enters Crooks's room, she verbally attacks and threatens them, causing them to feel demeaned and helpless. This is a feeling that she herself often has due to her marriage with Curly. So we see that when she calls them all the weak ones that are left behind. We see it that she threatens Crooks to have him strung up on a tree. We also see it when she talks about that her husband and the way that she kind of hates being married to him and stuck with him and the helpless feeling she has. That's the moment when we realize the reason she's being cruel to others is because life has been cruel to her. And so she is protecting herself from life being cruel to her again by first being cruel to others. Then the second way that we see it is the masked version of herself. She prances around the ranch, flirting with men, trying to get attention from them. And it comes off as though she's trying to be unfaithful to her husband. But what we start to realize in this chapter is that she really is just trying to have a connection with anyone. And the only way she knows how to do this in a safe way is by flirting. Curly's wife laughed. "Okay, machine, I'll talk to you later. I like machines." That line almost makes us cringe because, ew, she's flirting with Lenny and we know that she can't possibly be interested in him. So here is where we see her preventing herself from getting hurt. Again, oppression has caused her to build walls from society so that society cannot hurt her continuously.